All right. And now, Ben Goretsky.
Hey, Dove.
Ben, there we go.
Yay.
Ben, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm busy but good.
It's good.
Yes.
Ben, I've known you a long time.
Yeah.
We sort of have a love-hate relationship, don't we?
It's a love, eh? I
Maybe
only
not.
have love for you, Dove.
I see. So this is only a one-way street. So it's it's actually love like 95% of the time, and then the other five, it's like, Ben.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. So let's start at the beginning. How
Oh
did you
God.
get into vinyl toys? What did you see? Had you already been collecting action figures? What?
No. I got into vinyl toys because I went to Comic-Con one year, and I think it was 2000 or 2001, and the Tower Records booth had these really cool vinyl toys, and I had no idea what this was that I was looking at, but I loved them right away. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. And back then it was Key Bears. It wasn't even Bear Bricks, it was Key Bears from Toy 2R.
I mean, Bear Bricks were around before, but they
Right.
just had not invaded the U.S. market.
Correct. Yeah. So I was really intrigued by this idea of like, wow, they're all the same shape. They're like, because the way I saw it was like, wow, it's a canvas, but it's a toy canvas, which is really cool. So right after Comic-Con that year, I went up to the Tower Records on Sunset, and I was like, I want to go see what else they have there. And of course, they had tons more Key Bears, and they had Critter Box blind boxes that were Gary Baseman Dunces and Tim Biscup totems. And I just started diving into it more. And I think like maybe that same year or a year later, or maybe even 2 years later, the Kid Robot store opened up on 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica. And I had heard about Kid Robot and all that stuff, and I was like looking into their products, and I just like went down the rabbit hole. And then I looked into other toys made by Necessities Toys, where I found Necessities Toys, and it was like the original Camille Rose Garcia toys and things like that. And that's when I found you, Dove, because you were the distributor for all those toys.
Back in the day, that's right.
Yeah.
And you would, okay, but then how did the collecting led to you starting a website first?
Right. Yeah. So basically, I was collecting, and then my other company, which is USA ePay, we do the credit card processing stuff. And I was like, well, it actually started off like, I'll create a demo website, but I'll be using these figures that I really like. And then from the demo website, I'm like, why don't I just make it a real website? And then I registered the domain 3D Retro. And
famous last words.
There you go. But I mean, back in the day, it was like, it was literally just like a handful of products at the time. It was like stuff that I could get from you, stuff that I could get from Kid Robot. And I actually already had a wholesale account with Diamond, but I was mainly buying stuff from Diamond that was Simpsons related.
Right.
That was
and Strange Co.
And Strange Co. That's right. Yes, yeah. And Strange Co. So really, it was like these four sources that I was getting my toys from. It was like you, Kid Robot, Strange Co, and Diamond. And at the time, Diamond really didn't have much. Like I was just buying Simpson figures from them when I was the big Simpsons collector. So yeah, and I remember like some of the first toys were Frank Kozik from Kid Robot, and I was like, man, you know, these are amazing, these are awesome. I really wish I could like get 3D Retro to get our own toys. So like exclusive. So
I remember,
contacted
was it your first? It was the Lennon Dunny, right?
the Lennon Dunny. Yeah. So that was when, back in the day when you can still call Kid Robot and get, I remember it was Paul and Nicole. And like I would talk to Nicole, the Baroness, and I talked to her and I'm like, hey, if I can get Frank to do a design for me, because they had just released a Mao Dunny.
Right.
And I'm like, oh man. And I think I contacted Frank and I said, hey man, would you be cool doing a Lennon Dunny in the same style? And he was like, yeah, sure. So I contacted Kid Robot and I was like, hey, Frank's down to do a Lennon Dunny. Can we do it? And you know, we'll take it as an exclusive for 3D Retro. And you know, they went back and forth a little bit. And I think the only other store out there at the time was Yo-Yo Mart, which had their own exclusive Dunny. And I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. I want an exclusive Dunny for 3D Retro. So everyone agreed on it, and that's how we got the Lennon Dunny made. It was awesome.
And so then talk about, were you at those early Keyology shows?
I was. And, who was the owner of that? Was it, I want to say Miyomi, or
no, Miyomi was an artist. It was something like that.
Yeah. So
it was like Michi or Mochi or Muchi.
Yeah. And
Minchi.
Something like that.
Munchie?
Sure.
She's probably watching now and gonna like send me hate mail. Please don't. I don't really remember your name. Yeah, go on.
There's everybody's name, so it's okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I loved going to Keyology. I loved it, and I thought it was awesome. I thought, you know, like I loved it because it was actually in Pasadena, and I'm like, oh, this is so great. And like it was, you know, just a small room with probably no more than 10 vendors, and 3D Retro actually did it. We were one of the vendors, and maybe it was like we were one of the vendors like the second year, not the first year that I went to.
Yeah, the first year I called, I was like, can I get a table? And they're like, we're sold out. And then I went into that room. I was like, what do you mean you're sold out? Like, you can't put another table like right there? Right. So I think the second year is when I did it also.
Yeah. And I thought it was great. I thought it was a great show. And, you know, it probably brought in what, maybe 100 people or 200 people at max. But they were all collectors and buyers, and they loved it. And there were, I think there was like 1 or 2 artists that showed up to sign. So I loved it. I love Keyology. But, you know, I think it was after the second year, I noticed that it wasn't coming back. And I was waiting, and I'm like, damn, when is the show gonna happen again? And in my head, I was thinking like, oh my God, you know, this is like when is this thing coming back? And I actually emailed the owner and I said, hey, I love your show. I really want to help you get it up and running. You know, because I was thinking more as a vendor, like, oh man, I really need this because I don't have a retail store, and like it helped with sales tremendously and getting our name out and supporting the scene in general, just like bringing the community together. And I kind of got a nasty reply back from her, kind of saying,
right.
Like,
I remember she didn't want to do the show anymore, but she also didn't want like She was
Yeah.
just kind of like, screw you, do your own show.
No, it wasn't really do your own show. It was more like hey, this is my show, kind of, you know,
But also asserting that she wasn't going to do it anymore.
right, right. Kind of well, yeah, kind of like
Which,
making it known
which,
that,
which equals screw you, do your own show.
I guess.
It's like, hi, I want to help you do your show, and like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. Screw you. It's like, that's, go do your own show.
Right. So at that point I was like, okay, well, I wonder what it would take to do my own show. So I was like, I like the Pasadena thing. And so I went to the convention center and I talked to them, and I actually looked at the same room that Keyology was in. And I'm like, okay, what's the costs? And they're like, yeah, with this, we provide you with the tables and we provide you with the chairs, and this is how much it costs, and it's all included. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I started the Vinyl Toy Network, VTN. And like first year it was like one room, and like I said, we probably had like 10 vendors in there. But I think our first year we had like David Horvath showed up to sign. Chris Lee showed up to sign. Luke Chu was there to sign.
It was a pretty decent turnout the first year.
Yeah, it was awesome. And like Meltdown Comics had a booth, I remember. And I was trying to get like big names. I mean, even Japan LA, like Jamie was there. You actually introduced me to Jamie. You were the one that told me, like, you should probably get Jamie to do your show.
I've since had to apologize to her, but okay, go on.
It's all right. So, but yeah, from that it grew. And, we got bigger and bigger. We went from like an 1,100 square foot room to a 3,000 square foot room to something like a 14. We took up the lower area of the conference center, not the convention center, the conference center. The convention center wasn't even built because they didn't have the convention center until years later. And like, I remember they showed it to us, I think like a year or two after it was built, and like, this is our new convention center that we just built. It was awesome. But yeah, we went from bigger and bigger and bigger. But the problem was that everybody related Vinyl Toy Network to Vinyl Toys.
Right.
I wonder why. So every time I would approach vendors that were very related to the scene, like clothing or even resin toys, I would get like, oh, well, you guys are all about the vinyl toys. We don't do vinyl toys. And so I was like, damn it, like, how do I get these guys involved? And so Vinyl Toy Network started in 2005. And by 2009, I was like, okay, I need to change the name. And that's when Vinyl Toy Network became DesignerCon.
Wow.
And the first 2 years, it was Vinyl Toy Network presents DesignerCon.
Right.
And that was the first year. And then the second year was VTN presents DesignerCon. And then the year after that, it was like DesignerCon. It was like, let's get rid of the Vinyl Toy Network name. But yeah, so 2009, it was DCon, and then because of the name changes, it became a lot easier to get bigger vendors or other vendors involved. And, even though it was a hassle getting some of these vendors, it was even harder just to get more people in the door. Like, I remember you and I had conversations about, well, how are you going to get people in the door? How are you going to get more people in the door? So it was always like, okay, well, increasing the costs or increasing the spending on advertising, increasing the spending on radio ads, commercials, billboards, just anything and everything to get eyes on the name. And then, of course, like, the other factor was, like, I knew that if I can get if I could just get like one or two large names in the roster, whether it's a large name of an artist or a large name of a vendor, like that on its own would bring in more people because they want to see that artist or they want to buy that exclusive.
Right. What I remember is that the show, when it was small, it was just kind of like Ben's show, right? And so if people liked you, they did the show. And if they thought they were a little standoffish because they were technically a competitor, you know, they were another online seller, they're like, I don't want to support Ben, you know, he's my competition.
Right,
And
right.
then there was a point, do you remember the turning point where like where that didn't matter, where like the show had gone past your, you know, you as a
Yeah.
person and your persona, and it's like there was a point at which everyone wanted to be in that room or it meant that they were nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, because there was that like, oh, why would we do the 3D show? Yeah, it's, like, it's not Decon, it's a 3D retro show. But yeah, we did hit a point where I think it must have been like maybe 2013 or 2014. The other thing that really shook things up was, and maybe you remember what year it was, Dove, but there was like a year or two where it almost seemed like the entire art designer toy scene was just dead. Like nobody, it like almost seemed like it was either too flooded or nobody cared or nobody
No,
had the additional disposable income for these
well,
toys.
right around the financial crisis,
Yeah.
2008, 2009,
Okay.
a lot of new products stopped coming out. A lot of the stores started, you know, hemorrhaging cash.
Yep.
People, there had not been a financial crisis, you know, really since like 1987. A lot of people didn't remember. They started hoarding their cash, even if they were in good shape financially. They just stopped spending,
Yeah.
and you know the whole economy contracted. And even in distribution business, it was those were a rough few years. And honestly, it never really recovered after that. It's like we were 2005, 2006, 2008, we're all up here, and then it's like 2009, and then it just kept going. Like that was like the new normal.
Yeah.
The thing about that recovery in from that economy is like people lost their jobs, they kind of just never got them back. You know, these people lost their homes, like they didn't get new homes. They um in prior, you know, financial downturns, like there was like a rebound for everyone, and that was not a, you know, a rebound for everyone across the board. There's people who got plunged into poverty, and they just stayed there.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
bad. And like there were a lot of companies that were trying to make toys or making toys that just they were gone overnight. And then the collectors were like they stopped collecting, and then on top of it they were dumping their collections. They were just like, whatever I can get for it, you know, here it is. And you know, you would find all kinds of stuff just completely devalued on like sites like eBay, or I'm sure people were selling you their collections as well, you know. So yeah, so around that time, um, like you said, I think it was like 2010, especially. Um, the show kind of like was like my goal was this show is supposed to bring the community together. Like everything horrible is happening to our scene. And like I was seeing it, I was like, this is bad. Like people don't care anymore about our scene. And then the people that do care, almost it seems like there's nothing for them. There's nothing out there that's really like really supporting it. So that's when the show really became about like okay, this is a community show. We have to really bring the community together. Let's get everybody that we can together on this. Let's support each other, and let's just try keep building this up more and more and more. And let's not forget why we were doing this in the first place. And I think by 2000, like I said, 2012, 2013, that's when it was really like, yeah, man, DKE is a show that supports the vendors and it supports the artists. And if you're anybody from the scene, you need to be here. You need to be at this show. So I think that was the big turning point for us. Like, it was like, yeah, you know, this is about supporting the scene. And if you love this stuff, and if you want to meet the people behind it, and you want to get motivated, and you want to see what it's all about, this is the show that you need to go to. And we've kind of kept that aspect through the years.
And then I think it was 2017 was another turning point. 2017 was the year that there were lines out the door.
Yep.
You had expanded to the second room, and then like the fire marshal came, and then you were like, holy shit, like you outgrew Pasadena.
So 2016 was the first year that we did Hall C.
Right.
We outgrew the convention center, which was the ballroom, Exhibit Hall A, and Exhibit Hall B. Mm-hmm. And we're like, we need more space. So we went into Exhibit Hall C. And 2016 was the first year we did that. And it was like, oh man, nobody knows about Hall C, even though people like Paul Frank were in there and like some really big names. And in 2017, I was like, okay, look, you know, I knew that the first year for Hall C was going to be rough. And I'm like, people are going to get used to it. So in 2017, I put in so much into pushing and advertising that we have this, and that, you know, we mix things up a little bit, and we put all kinds of like artist tables in there, and like the enamel pin scene was building up really, really well in 17. And we did a really big push. And like, I remember, I think it was that year that the LA Times did like a major story on the show. Mm-hmm. And that year we had, like you said, for the first time ever, we had lines, not just around the convention center. We had a line going around the entire block. And it was like, are we going to be able to sustain this? Are we going to get shut down? And yeah, we had the fire marshal come, but we kept dibs on stuff. We had things like, you know, is there more wiggle room in the rooms? Are people able to still move around? And like, yeah, it was fine. So we were never shut down. The thing was, we were really like delayed because we had at the time in 2017 2 counters checking people in. And I mean, it was fast. We were ding, 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 but still, it was only 2 counters.
Right.
So that was like, oh my God.
And then how many did you have last year in Anaheim?
So the following year,
yeah,
2018, we're like, we're never going to let this happen again. Mm-hmm. Like, no way. And now we have 20 counters.
Wow. Yeah. And so can you talk about the move to, so the one year you just totally blew out Pasadena.
Yep. And everybody was like, oh my God, you know, that was amazing, incredible. And it was like terrifying for me.
Right.
It was fantastic. Like, don't get me wrong. It was so amazing to see that. And on one hand, people were like, this show is incredible. And on the other hand, people were like, I stood in line for 40 minutes to get into this thing. Fuck you. You know? and these are the people that have been coming to the show since 2005.
Well, they're jaded because you used to be able to just walk in the door and just be like, do VIP, you know, just walk right in. It was like they never expected a line. And if you do something, people get trained, you know.
Yeah.
It's like I show up every year and I walk right in. And then one year you show up and you're like, what? I got to wait in line?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this is not cool.
Yeah. Dude, we had a handful. It was just a handful of people. They would come up to the front of the line. They're like, I want my $10 back. Like, all right, sure. Like, and I'd go to the cash bin and I'd be like, can I get $10, please? He's like, there's three of us. I'm like, can I get $30, please? And like, I'd be like, I'm so sorry. I mean, the show's great. If if you feel like you change your mind, please, we'd love to still have you go inside. I think you'd have a great time. We have some amazing stuff. Like, we're gonna wait in this line. What the hell?
Yeah.
And like a lot of people thought the show was ruined. Like, that's it. The end of DCon. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's a certain percentage of the population, it's that whole thing. It's like, you like a band when they're small and then they
yeah,
get huge and then they're like, I don't like them anymore. They're
sell out.
sellouts. Yeah.
Sellouts. Yeah, a lot of people thought we sold out. And then
You did sell out, but not that kind of sellout.
no, not that kind of stuff. And then so we were getting ready for 2018. And we were like, okay, a lot of people don't know this, but initially 2018 was planned for Pasadena.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, okay, we got to reevaluate how we're going to do things, how we're going to do the lines. We were like thinking like, okay, like we'd use more check-in counters and things like that and figure out things with Pasadena and how we do things and all that. But Pasadena kind of dropped the bomb on us. Mm-hmm. And we already had a wait list at that point of something like 600 or 700 vendors on the wait list.
Wait, so go back. I'm sorry, go back. You said Pasadena dropped the bomb. What was the bomb?
Pasadena dropped the bomb on us because they said, hey, next year you can't have Hall C.
What?
Yeah. And we're like, why? And what a lot of people don't know is like the show, America's Got Talent, they film it in Pasadena. They film it at the auditorium.
Right.
And when they film it at the auditorium, if you notice, Hall C is located behind the auditorium.
Right.
And they use that as like their setup area. And when a studio comes in, they don't rent the space for 3 days. They rent the space for like 9 months.
Yeah, but weren't you the biggest show that Pasadena ever had?
Yeah, it was because we were their poster child.
Mm-hmm.
We were literally the show that grew up in Pasadena. We started in an 1,100 square foot room, and we could literally take up the entire convention center if we wanted to. Mm-hmm. And we were the ones that convinced people like CatCon to come. Mm-hmm. We were the ones that convinced Monsterpalooza to move their show there. Right. We literally were on calls with other conventions with the Pasadena Convention Center, convincing people that this is the right place to have your show.
Wow.
Huh?
I said, wow.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
I said, wow.
I thought you said why.
Well, I mean, that is really nice of you to get on the phone and help Pasadena sell their place, which is not your job, but then they kind of like shit on you. But okay, so then what?
So, well, you have to remember, it's like the people that I work with there at Pasadena, they're amazing, and I have nothing bad to ever say about them. And they just have to follow, kind of like what their superiors were telling them, which is like, sorry, we just can't do this. And as soon as they told me that Hall C was not available, I told them, like, you guys, I'm gonna have to move. And they're like, no, let's work something out. Let's do something different. Let's put everybody, why don't you use the expos, thing? And I'm like, dude, I had a hard enough time getting people to walk 10
feet
across to Hall C.
Yeah.
You want me to tell them to go visit a bunch of vendors across the entire courtyard while you've got America's Got Talent filming in the auditorium, and people are going to be walking over to Hall C, and there's going to be like production crews in there, and people are going to be confused as shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't do that. And I actually talked to them and I said, what about the ice rink?
Ben, settle down.
Sorry. So I said, what about the ice rink? Can you put a floor on the ice rink?
Yeah.
And they went back to the city, and the city was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to put a floor on the ice rink.
What the Lakers used to play on a wood floor on top of ice in the Forum. Like,
Yeah,
why?
it was just they didn't want to do it. Maybe it was
Wow.
just not worth it for a 3-day event. But basically, that was when I made the decision I need to move to another convention center. Los Angeles was not an option. One, because I really don't like the Los Angeles Convention Center too much. Just the parking there and everything like that is just very congested. And two, our timing for the Los Angeles Convention Center was off because they always have the LA car show going on the same time that we would want to do our show. So,
By the way, I never get to go to the LA car show because of you.
You're welcome.
Just kidding.
You're absolutely welcome. So so we went to Anaheim, and man, I mean, Anaheim's did you know that Anaheim is the largest convention center on the West Coast?
I can imagine. But didn't you tell me that DCon was the largest convention they've ever had there?
No.
No, not yet.
Anaheim,
you were the largest convention Pasadena ever had.
Yeah, we were the largest convention that Pasadena ever had.
Wow.
Anaheim, I mean, you got to remember they have like WonderCon, and they have things like VidCon, and
but you took up the
BlizzCon.
same amount of space that WonderCon took up.
No, WonderCon takes up. So we take up Hall C and D, and I think WonderCon takes up A through D.
I see.
Yeah, but they have like a lot of big booths and things like that. And then VidCon also takes up like A through D, and then they also take up the expansion and all that stuff.
Give it time.
Yeah, so when I know, hopefully. But basically we went in there, and initially we were looking at the expansion, the brand new buildings that they built out. And we realized, like, wait a minute, the space in the expansion is actually about the same space total wise as what we were dealing with in Pasadena. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not good, because we were at a point where we were nearing 1,000 people on our wait list. And I'm like, well, if we're going to do this, we really have to like open up the space. And that's when we went to just the original convention center. And originally we booked Hall C, only Hall C. We're like, great, we got Hall C. And then what ended up happening is I went and had a conversation with Medicom and traveled to Japan, talked to them, and convinced them to work with our show and to basically have our show as the exclusive US convention that they do, in exchange for like them being able to sell, you know, millions of dollars worth of product. Right. But we would assist them in doing so. And that's when we were like, oh my God, well, if we're going to do Medicom, we need a bigger hall. And that's why we expanded to Hall C and D in 2018. So that was a big turning point for us. A lot of people got angry again because we weren't in Pasadena. And
see, you're always making people mad, dude.
Always. But people don't know the backstory. They don't get to hear like, hey, Pasadena didn't even let us have Hall C. Like it would have been a total shit show. Total shit show. So we had to move. It was kind of like they kind of pushed us to it, you know.
Sure.
But it was fine. It was fine. You know, we did our first year 2018 in Anaheim, and I already knew mentally that first of all, the space is massive. There's a lot more room there. There's a lot more vendors, bigger vendors also taking up a larger space. So this was like the first year that we were able to be like, hey, if you want more than 2 booths, we can accommodate you. Like Dove, you probably remember, like most of the time in Pasadena, we'd be like, all right, you can have a 10 by 20 or maybe a 10 by 30, but
Right.
that's it. Like we would never be able to offer a 20 by 20 island or,
Sure.
you know, anything like that because we knew we'd run out of room very, very, very quickly. So Anaheim gave us the ability to, it wasn't just about, hey, let's get 600 more vendors in here, which we didn't do. But it was more about like, hey, we can now offer bigger spaces for these guys. And that really helped us get the international guys in there. Because the international vendors will not do a convention unless they know that they can represent themselves properly. You know, they need to have a 20 by 20 booth, whether it's an island or an end cap, where they can put up proper signage, build out a booth, do all kinds of stuff. You know, you're not going to get somebody like Unruly or Sideshow in a 10 by 10 booth trying to sell their stuff. You know, Metacom would have never done the show. You know, their booth is literally a 60 by 60 booth. It's massive. You know, and
Wow.
that's not including the additional 60 by 20 space attached to the booth just for their storage.
Jeez.
Yeah.
60 by 60.
Yeah, dude.
What is that's 36 booths.
Yeah. It's awesome.
I have 3.
Yeah. Come on, Dub. Get it going.
Insane. All right. So then COVID-19 hits.
COVID-19 hits. Oh,
World
and
is
mind you, 2019 was our best year ever. 2018 was a little slow. 2019 rolls around. Everybody got word that Anaheim is amazing. You got to do this. Put all this shit aside about, you know, Pasadena. Like, just put it off to the side. You cannot miss this show. 2019 happens, and we're like, amazing. Numbers higher than ever. Crowds higher than ever. You know, 3 days completely packed. Vendors selling out of shit left and right on VIP night alone.
Right.
You know, incredible. Like the best year we've ever had. And
then
we're like,
the world
2020 here
catches
we come.
on fire and goes to shit. Yeah.
2020. Like we had so much planned for 2020, Dove. It's not even funny. It's ridiculous.
Let's talk about what 2020 is actually going to be.
Okay. So 2020 is actually going to be a virtual.
But let me interrupt you because what I kept asking you by text, I'm like, is DCon canceled? And you kept saying, no, it's not canceled. It's going online.
Yes.
I'm like, so it's canceled. And you're like, no, it's going online.
Right.
So it's canceled. No, it's going online. I'm like, okay, fine. It's canceled, but it's online. It's like, no. Anyway, go on.
It's not canceled. It's going online. It is. Yeah. So okay. So DCon 2020 is not an in-person event. That's what's happening. So we started looking for a virtual solution, like all the way back in like April.
Mm-hmm.
And April, everything was like, at least here in LA, I think mostly everything was already on lockdown. Mm-hmm. Everybody was already at home. Everybody was already quarantining. And honestly, like in my head, I was like, there's no way that this thing is going to go until November. Everybody's going to do their part. We're going to flatten the curve. Everything's going to be better by November. I honestly thought like summer's going to roll around, and by end of July,
This
Things will
shit's
start getting-
gonna go away.
This shit's gonna go away. Everything's gonna be fine. Hell, San Diego Comic-Con might happen. It might not happen. You know, we're gonna see. You know, like the shit's gonna go away, and you know, people are still gonna be concerned about Comic-Con and all the crowd, but it'll still happen, or else the city of San Diego is gonna go broke. And but at the same time, I had to cover all my bases, and I was like, well, maybe we should, just in case, look for alternative solutions that are virtual. And honestly, like everything that I found was garbage. Like it was just awful.
Mhm.
There was no way to sustain a large amount of vendors. There was no interactive element to it. If it did have an interactive element in it, it had no commerce attached to it. So like you can do video, but you couldn't sell. Or you would tell people on the video to go to your website and buy something.
Right.
Kind of like what you're doing. So it just didn't go well. It doesn't work because at the end of the day, and you know, you can contest to this if you want, but at the end of the day, you know, even though you might have that video element to it, most vendors will have the mentality of like, I could just put this shit on my website, sell it that way, and instead of being on video telling people to go to my website, like I could just put it up, send out a mailer, and sell it that way. There's no interactive part to it, you know.
Right.
Like what you're doing is different because you actually took like different elements and you're like meshing it together to make DKE
Right.
come.
Right, but you're correct in that the sales portion of it is not connected to what we're doing right now. Like you have to
Right.
go to a different website and log in and buy your stuff. Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, exactly. So you're kind of relying on people to watch on one thing or in one screen and then open up their browser and buy it. Whereas opposed to when they're at a con, they are at the booth, they look at this thing and they're like, oh man, that's awesome. And you could be like, yep, we only got 3 of them left. And you know what happens most of the time is they pull out their credit card and be like, I want one.
Right.
Okay, thanks, here you go. You know, and we were looking and searching for where and how can we have this element of like the compulsive buy versus the, you know, and the interactiveness and the, you know, like, you know, being able to go from booth to booth and have all that happening. And we couldn't find it. It was nowhere. Like, and like at one point I was like, do I build this thing myself? Do I get developers on board? And we gotta build this thing. And, you know, it's like, you know, and it became clear as soon as San Diego Comic-Con canceled, and you know, things were not going well with the numbers, it became ultimately clear to me that I need to find a solution. Like I need to find something because people are idiots, and this thing is not going away that soon. Because I mean, to this day, people think that the virus is fake, and you know, but whatever. That's all.
Can I quote you? I'm going to rent a billboard. It's just going to say, "People are idiots." Ben Goretsky.
Ben Goretsky. Thank you. But I don't want to get political, you know. It's
Sure.
like, you know, it's just
we
like
we all understand.
yeah. Thank you. So luckily, in July or near the end of July, I got approached actually by Jamie of Japan LA, and she's like, dude, I'm doing this thing, and like she told me about it before and like invited me to watch and all that, and I was like, yeah, cool, okay, whatever. But we got together and we talked about this app called Pop Shop Live. And she's like, no, you don't understand. This thing is amazing. And I'm like, why? Why is it so amazing? Like, she's like, it's just, it's like QVC on your phone. It's incredible. It's live and you're selling things. I'm like, yeah, but like, how does it all work? And like, how do you do this? And she's like, you literally take a picture of the product as you're talking about it and you can sell it right there and then. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And she's like, no, you have to believe me. This thing is insane. It's incredible. And like, you can either do that or you can preload your items and then just like show them when you want, or you can have them, you know, already on the screen, ready to go for sale when you start your live, but it's better to do drops and things like that. I'm like, what? And then she's like, and by the way, like I'm selling 10 times the amount of stuff that I would when I was usually open. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, my numbers are higher than ever. Like,
Yeah, you used to answer my phone, like answer the phone when I called, and then like every time I call now, it's like I'm live on Pop Shop Live, and it's like,
yeah,
and Ben, like answer your phone. He's like, sorry, I'm live on Pop Shop. It's like, dude, answer the phone.
it's a. Have you seen? So Eric from Giant Robot, have you seen his shows?
No,
He's on there. Are you even on the app, though?
no.
Oh my god.
I have another event that I was promoting.
Anyway, like Eric from Giant Robot, he was like, Jamie also was trying to convince him. And I love Eric and everything, but you know, he's a tough audience, you know, to get him onto like new technology. And when he finally came onto Pop Shop Live, he is hooked so much that he literally, like, I think does it like 3 or 4 times a week. It's insane. And you know what? The hardest thing for us now at 3D Retro is getting new inventory, because we sell out of stuff so quickly on that thing. It's insane.
Really? So should I just leave the booth up and just next week just start a Pop Shop Live?
Yeah, you should.
Just do it every week.
Yeah.
Ian's
I'm
head is exploding over there.
I'm dead serious. Like, this is like, I know e-commerce. I know, like, I know the entire, like, I've been in the credit card and e-commerce scene for 22 years now. And I'm telling you right now that this is the future. This is it. This is how sales are going to happen. Now, is Pop Shop Live the first one to do something like this? No. You know, there's plenty of other companies that have either tried to do something like this or are doing something like this, but differently. Like even Network, they're doing this, but they have it in an encapsulated type of form. And you know, they're the ones selling the products, even though I know that probably before the end of the year, they're going to have a solution like Pop Shop Live available through their channels. And then I also understand that probably in the first quarter of next year, Instagram is probably going to have the same thing, that you're going to be able to go live on Instagram and sell your products right there on Instagram as you're talking about them.
Wow.
But right now, from what I'm seeing, is Pop Shop Live is the best solution that is out there. It's incredible. So I started using it as 3D Retro. And I'm like, this is insane. This is fantastic. How do we make a convention using this technology? And I got in contact with the CEO, Danielle Lee, and we started talking. And, you know, luckily the company's still in its infant stages where I am able to talk to the right people over there. And we made an agreement that, okay, with the help of their development team, with our help, we will completely do DesignerCon 2020 on Pop Shop Live.
Wow.
But we have to, and mind you, we've been working on this probably, you know, since, you know, August, which isn't that much time, but still, there is going to be a completely separate interface from what people are using right now, the interface is changing for a convention interface, which is much more like made for lots of vendors. Because right now you go into the app and there's like, you can scroll through and you can see like what vendors are doing what, and because they only have like probably maybe 30-40 vendors on there. But it's funny because we've done shows with artists like Scott Tolson and Luke Chu and a couple of others, and after they've done the shows with us, they now have their own channels
Right.
to sell stuff, which is awesome. But this new interface is really made for the convention element. Like it's really made for, 150 to 200 vendors selling all at once, products being highlighted, vendors being highlighted, a stage for, special events and things like that. So it's a completely different interface for the users and for the vendors.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah. I see somebody's asking about, what about international for DCon? So the international, here's the way it works for DesignerCon 2020 online is international vendors are able to join and sell. International customers that want to purchase items, they will need to have a US shipping address. So vendors won't be able to sell to international customers unless they have a US shipping address.
But the benefit of that is for $6.95, you can buy as much as you want, right?
Yeah, per vendor.
Right. So, when we do it in next month, in November, someone can spend $6.95 and they can keep coming back and buying stuff all day, right?
All 3 days.
All 3 days, and then it's $6.95 no matter how much they buy.
Correct.
Nate wants to know, does DesignerCon accept kidneys as payment?
No, we don't. Unnecessary.
All right, Ben. Thank you so much for your time. We are all hoping that this is the revolution that you want it to be for all of our sakes.
Yeah, me too.
Because otherwise we're going to go down in flames. Not really. It'll be fine. It's just, I'm starting to question 2021.
Oh God, why? No, don't do that.
Because I don't think conventions are coming back in 2021.
No, I think.
It's like, oh no, I really don't. I can't imagine what is going to change between now and then. There's
what do you think is gonna happen with Los Angeles Comic-Con?
What are they doing? They're
in person, December 3rd, Los Angeles Convention Center.
Yeah, and then what are people going to stand in line 6 feet apart? Like, I'm not going to that shit.
I don't know.
I don't want to stand next to someone who wants to go to that. It's like my neighbors. Like, there was 20 people at my neighbor's house the other day. They were outside until 2 in the morning. And granted, it's outside, but those people, like.
Well, Dov, there's a lot of people that believe that as soon as the election is over, that this thing's going to go away.
Oh, man.
November 5th or November 4th, gone, man. Gone. All of it. The hoax is over. Right? Over, man.
Right. All right. Well, on that positive note.
There you go.
I really appreciate the time. I think it is very enlightening.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think all the people who have made it this far with just, I don't know. I always like knowing like the behind the scenes kind of stuff that goes on. And
you were there, Dov.
I know, but I'm just saying like the people who get to watch this now, they get kind of like the inside scoop about like the evolution of this. And I think all that stuff is kind of fascinating. So
well, thank you.
I really appreciate the time.
No problem, man. Anytime.
I will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dev.
Ben. Ben.